Hey you, and welcome. My name is Mike, and in this old video, we are going to dinner. I hope you're hungry for a real good one, though definitely don't eat what the person in this story would serve you. It's set in Australia, and if you thought the sharks and the snakes were gonna get you, wait till you get a load of this person, because they do not stop. They're like the Terminator. They do not give up. Earlier this year, 2023, a woman was having in-laws over for dinner. Well, ex-in-laws, which kind of makes this even stranger. That dinner did not go well for them. Though, was this a case of accidentally using the wrong ingredients? Or purposely so? It's still ongoing, so let's see what we can see. And before we get into this wild story, let me talk to you about Raycon, who are sponsoring this whole video. My friends, you have certainly heard of Raycon. That's a little joke, because they make earphones, headphones, all types of listening devices. Incredible ones. Specifically, their everyday headphones. Ooh, very nice. A must-have for any audio lover or person who likes to listen to stuff. Raycon actually sent me the everyday noise isolating earbuds, and holy moly, they are awesome. I can't hear you, speak up. My favorite thing to use when listening to That Chapter videos or the That Chapter podcast. I can't tell how loud I'm talking right now. Raycon made its name by providing premium audio products at great prices, like the everyday earbuds and everyday headphones, plus their new line of Raycon Home and Raycon PowerTech products. It's premium technology at a great price. Check their reviews if you don't believe them. To the extent that, if you do not like them, well, free and easy returns, but you won't be doing that because they are awesome. And as holiday season is fast approaching, and as someone who is absolutely dire at buying gifts, I never know what to get people, so I always get them something bad. Raycon are something I would big recommend for Raycon products. Their earbuds, their headphones, perfect stocking filler. So this holiday season, get premium sound at a great price. And save even more doing it. Go to buyraycon.com/chapter to get 15% off site-wide. Once again, that's buyraycon.com/chapter to get 15% off across the entire site. Give them a go if you were looking for some last-minute holiday gifts, and thank you so much to Raycon for supporting the channel. Now, let's give it a go! It is Leongatha we are off to in this one. The big L, though some people will certainly be taking one in this story. And it sits in Victoria, Australia. Guys, you have no idea how hard it is not to do the accent. Crikey, it's a Sheila of a small town, full of bogans, bush tellies, and other Australian slang I don't understand. But I do understand that about 6,000 people live there, and it's surrounded by fields and farmland. All of which are full of sharks, no doubt. I know, Australia makes no sense. In September, you got a Daffodil Festival, book your tickets now, and it is the commercial centre of South Gippsland. Well, colour this guy intrigued. It's in the foothills of the Strzelecki Mountains. Lots of dairy farms, and there's a golf course people seem to enjoy. In Leongatha, a woman lived, name of Erin Patterson. She is the mother of 2 children, 49 years of age, and in 2023, she was a stay-at-home mother. But previously, she had worked as an air traffic controller in Melbourne City. This was before she was Erin Patterson, better known back then as Erin Scudder. Tough job, working the ATC. A lot of pressure because of, like planes and all that kind of stuff. But she was described as, highly intelligent, very capable, responsible, a very bright person. And whenever she was in a relationship, she would have the lads wrapped around her little finger. Having said that, though, she was described at the same time as being a little unkempt, not big into looking her best, which is absolutely fine, and she was also described as a little abrasive. She was smart, smarter than most, and knew it. She wouldn't have a problem, yelling, having a go at, roaring at her own boss, for minor things, for example. She worked as an ATC operator for a couple of years, then she went on to work as an accountant, but it seems she gave all that up in her late 20s. When she met and she married Simon Patterson. He's an engineer and basketball coach, and they married in 2006. They had 2 children together, and then, after about 15 years of marriage, things came to an end. Though somewhat amicably must have been, because right on July 29th, 2023, Erin Patterson had her ex-in-laws over for lunch. That was her former parents-in-law, Simon's parents, Don and Gail Patterson, along with Gail's sister, Heather Wilkinson, and Heather's husband, Ian. Kind of odd to, like, divorce somebody and then have, you know, their family, your ex-family over for dinner, and even their relatives. But, you know, small town, I guess maybe they remained sorta close. Inciting incident time. The meal served at this lunch in Erin's Leongatha property was beef Wellington, which is, hell yeah, delicious. You got the beef, you got the pastry, you got the gravy. Top tier din din. I would have tucked in like a son of a gun, which would have been a bad idea. Soon after lunch, Dawn and Gail Patterson, along with Heather and Ian, became violently ill. The next day, all four were admitted to hospital with food poisoning-like symptoms. Erin was fine though. She was all good, even though she too claimed to have, you know, tucked in. Over the following 6 days, Dawn, Gail, and Heather would die in hospital. Ian, Heather's husband, would survive but be left in critical condition. He would, 2 months later, be discharged from hospital after a liver transplant. Detectives would interview Erin shortly afterwards. Obviously, right, suspected food poisoning deaths. It was in her house, she had served the food, he got 3 deaths and 1 very near death. But after questioning her and doing an initial search of her property, they let her go. She was released.
Good evening. 3 people have now died and another is fighting for life after being poisoned by wild mushrooms at a lunch with friends in Gippsland. Homicide detectives are investigating the deaths and have questioned a 48-year-old woman who has now been released. Amber Johnston with this report.
Reverend Ian Wilkinson, a local pastor at the Currumbara Baptist Church, fighting for life as police launch a homicide probe.
It's a really shocking situation. All the people who are involved are very well known in our community, which is a tight-knit community, and very well respected and loved.
Reverend Wilkinson's wife Heather, her sister and her husband died after eating toxic wild mushrooms at a lunch with friends.
It's a piece the size of a 20-cent coin is sufficient to kill a person.
It's important that they explore all possibilities to determine if this was just an awful accident or something more sinister.
It would turn out that the beef was, allegedly, covered in a paste of death cap mushrooms. They ain't called death cap mushrooms because they're good for you. Death cap mushrooms are found in the wild and extremely, capital E, toxic. Deaths are far from uncommon. If you were to munch down on a death cap mushroom, you'd be fine for about 8 to 12 hours as it made its way through your system. Then it would kick in. You get the nausea, you get the vomiting, you get the low blood pressure. After that though, about 12 hours after those symptoms kicked in, you'd feel right as rain again. You'd be, oh man, feeling grand. You'd be thinking, okay, I ate it, bleh, gone, it's past. I'm all good now. You'd be wrong, my friend. See, that's when it really hits you. A day or so later, these symptoms return, along with kidney and liver damage, liver failure, and possibly death. See, every cell in your liver starts dying, and it is extremely painful the entire way out. You do not need to even eat a full mushroom to experience this, like half a cap will do. Even its juices are toxic. Now, Erin would speak tearfully to the media, denying she had done anything on purpose.
It's a tragedy what's happened.
Can you tell us about the meal that you cooked?
I'm so devastated by what's happened, by the loss of Dawn. Dawn is still in hospital, the loss of Ian and Heather and Gail. They were some of the best people that I've ever met. Gail was like...
Take your time.
Gail was the mum that I didn't have because my mum passed away 4 years ago. And Gail's never been anything but good and kind to me. And Ian and Heather were some of the best people I've ever met. They never did anything wrong to me, and I'm so devastated about what's happened.
Can you tell us
and the loss to the community and to the families and to my own children who've lost their grandmother.
Can you tell us a bit more about the lunch?
What I can tell you is that I just can't fathom what has happened. I just can't fathom what has happened.
Saying this was a tragic accident. That she'd bought the mushrooms at an Asian store in Melbourne. She didn't know they were dangerous and that she felt awful.
I'm devastated. I love them. And I can't believe that this has happened, and I'm so sorry that they have lost their lives.
How are you
I just can't believe it. Just can't believe it.
In fact, for a time, this story made the news for obvious reasons. Over the next few weeks, heads did start to fall, that maybe it had been a horrible accident. She was still listed by the police as a suspect, of course, but them actually pressing charges wasn't coming anytime soon. But it did come, because the police would learn quite a bit about our dear Erin Patterson, and she wasn't exactly the delicate little flower that she was kind of presenting herself to be. See, Erin, it turned out, was in fact quite rich. When both her parents passed away, leaving everything to Erin and her sister, well, everything turned out to be a lot of things. A shitload of property, and soon Erin became the owner of a multi-million-dollar property portfolio. It appeared that Erin wasn't too fond of Mom, texting a friend, quote, "My mum was ultra weird her whole life. We had a horrible upbringing. Mum was essentially a cold robot. It was like being brought up in a Russian orphanage where they don't touch the babies." That's weird, oh well. She died and left Erin a lot of money and some very expensive properties. This left Erin with quite a lot of time on her hands. Time she would use for foraging, as Erin Patterson was said to be a very experienced forager. What do foragers tend to look and find a lot? Mushies might. Or how about she would decorate her own house in very creepy shit. Her stunning artwork, c'est magnifique, that means it's real good, was found in one of her homes, with cool quotes like, "I am dead, no, I'm really dead," or how about, "You're dead from my sword," or well, whatever this shit is. Interesting stuff. Now, it's not known if Erin did that or one of her kids did that, but, frankly, if they write that, I wouldn't be worried about anybody who writes that. Not at all, no siree, Bob.
Erin maintains her innocence and says she's grieving too.
It's not Midsummer Murders. This is Curramborough. This is real people's lives.
Now, all of this would start coming out in dribs and drabs. All the time Erin saying she didn't knowingly do anything wrong, and said, honestly, "You're being really unfair, guys." She said she was being painted as an evil witch.
Can you tell us where the mushrooms came from? Police say you're a suspect. Do you have anything to say about that?
Yes, I say I didn't do anything. I love them. And I'm devastated that they're gone.
Love me some crocodile tears. Or how about when she became editor of the local newspaper, where she called the locals illiterate bastards. Or apparently she had a huge love of true crime. Hi, Erin. Oh, wait. And over the course of 2021 to 2022, police believe she tried to kill her husband at the time, Simon Patterson. 4 times. 4 times. Like I said, she's a Terminator. She was determined. He was sent to the hospital 3 times due to some sort of mystery illness. He wrote on Facebook, "I collapsed at home, then was in an induced coma for 16 days, through which I had 3 emergency operations, mainly on my small intestine, plus an additional planned operation. My family was asked to come and say goodbye to me twice, as I was not expected to live. I was in intensive care for 21 days. Sounds like he ate something shite. These were even suspicions he had, but when he voiced them, people would just say, "Oh, you're just being bitter about the upcoming and eventual divorce he was going to have with Erin." A class friend of Simon's would later tell the police that the whole reason for the deadly lunch, it was a bid to win Simon back. See, Simon was supposed to go to that lunch, but he pulled out the last minute. She was going to win him back by killing him? Allegedly, she was desperate to get the gang back together, and the lunch was, in fact, an intervention, maybe just to get her to stop. It appeared Simon's family didn't want him to get back with her, so they got. At the time of the lunch, she just so happened to send her children to the mall, and either A, she barely touched the lunch she made because she wasn't hungry, or B, she did have some, but it was from an unpoisoned portion. The day after the lunch, Erin drove to the nearby garbage dump to get rid of the food dehydrator she had used to prepare the mushrooms. The police later found it.
There's been another development in the case of suspected mushroom poisoning in Victoria, which led to the deaths of 3 people and left another in a critical condition.
Now, in this statement, she says that the mushrooms that were used to cook this beef Wellington, that she'd bought them from the local supermarket, as well as using other dried mushrooms I'd bought from an Asian grocery store. This is Erin's statement. She also says that she too consumed the meal and she too was hospitalised and spent the night at Monash Medical Centre. She said that she'd gone there because I had bad stomach pains and terrible diarrhoea. I was put on a saline drip and stayed in hospital overnight. I was also given some medicine I was told was a liver protective drug.
Detectives returned to a Coonawarra tip last week to speak to staff after taking a dehydrator days earlier. Ms Patterson says the dehydrator was hers and she did take it to the tip in a moment of panic.
Now, Erin would admit she had dumped it. She said she did so because, in a panic, she was worried she would lose custody of her children as a result of the deaths. Now, this was something she rushed home from hospital to get rid of because she thought that getting rid of it wouldn't look worse.
And I'm grieving too, and you guys don't have any respect for that.
We do. We just need to try to understand more. Absolutely, you can. We just need to understand more what took place. What was served on that day.
Erin, we just want to know what you told the police.
Have you had any further contact today?
You don't have any permission to be on my private property or to harass me. This kind of behaviour will send someone to drive off a bridge.
Erin, how are you going? Are you okay?
I'm going for asking, and you guys aren't helping.
It would be on September 28, months after the lunch, that mushroom poisoning would be confirmed as the cause of the deaths. Erin continued to say she bought them at an Asian grocery store. Then she would say it was a mixture of 2 different mushrooms she'd bought at 2 different stores, but couldn't remember which stores. All the local Asian stores in the area would say they never had any issues with any of the mushrooms they sold. And I mean, why would you buy 2 different mushrooms from 2 different stores in the first place? Apparently she would say she'd done it months before and just held onto them. Her story is whack.
I'm here to provide an update in relation to the homicide investigation in relation to the deaths of 3 people following an incident in Leongatha that occurred earlier this year. This morning, detectives arrested a 49-year-old female in relation to this incident, and a search warrant was subsequently executed at her residential address. This search is currently ongoing, and we are being assisted by the AFP's technology detector dogs. I think it's particularly important that we keep in mind that at the heart of this, 3 people have lost their lives. These are 3 people who, by all accounts, were much beloved in their communities and are greatly missed by their loved ones.
It would be on November 2nd, 2023, that Erin Patterson was arrested and charged with 3 counts of murder and, get this, 5 counts of attempted murder. That was ultimately the 4 attempted murders of her ex-husband Simon, and 1 of Ian Wilkerson, who, after 7 weeks in hospital, most of which were in a coma, he was released.
Explosive court documents have revealed Erin Patterson allegedly tried to murder her estranged husband 4 times by feeding him poisoned meals years before the mushroom tragedy.
Erin Patterson, stay-at-home mum, and now an accused triple murderer. How's your client doing in custody?
She's good, thanks. I've just got to get through.
Miss Patterson's estranged husband, Simon, was still wearing his wedding ring just weeks ago. But overnight, a bombshell. His former wife had allegedly plotted to kill him a total of 4 times. And she allegedly murdered both his parents, his auntie, and attempted to murder his uncle.
The same day, specialist dogs were brought to her home. Dogs trained to sniff out electronic devices, such as phones, laptops, SIM cards, USB sticks, you name it. I mean, if they brought in those tech dogs, which is kind of wild they exist to be honest, they must have found some very incriminating Google searches at the very least. That's likely why it took them so long to charge her. They wanted to have everything wrapped up in a nice little bow. What they found to actually charge her now, you know, over 3 months later, I don't know. Perhaps they found proof of her getting the mushrooms, foraging the mushrooms. Maybe she'd gone out into the local area, because they were known to be in the local area. She'd gone out one day, shortly before the lunch, foraging. She had her phone with her, and the police were able to track her movements of where she had gone. They followed them into, you know, the bush, and they found like a patch of death cap mushrooms where she had been gathering them. I don't know. Or perhaps on her internet, on Google, she'd been searching up all that kind of stuff about them too. Probably a mix of both. That's just one theory, of course, if she is ultimately found guilty. But I mean, riddle me this, big dog. That's a lot of death caps people around her have been unwittingly ingesting. Especially people around her who are maybe, blocking her attempt from getting back with her husband. Or perhaps another theory, again if she did do it, was that she didn't actually mean to kill anyone. She didn't think this amount of mushrooms would prove fatal. That she just wanted them, and her husband, who was supposed to come to that specific dinner, to get very, very sick, just like her husband had 3 frickin' times before. She wanted the same thing to happen one more time. Because then, of course, what would Erin do? Swoop in like an angel nurse, doing whatever they needed for them at their bedsides every single day, nursing them back to health. I mean, how could they not fall in love with her again? How could he not get back with her if that would happen? You might even call her a hero. Perhaps that was the reason for her poisoning her ex-husband Simon. He was getting ready to leave her, to divorce her, and so she began to put death cap mushrooms into his food, sending him to the hospital, and there Erin would nurse him back to health. Every time it looked like he was about to leave, that the marriage was done, she would poison him again. Now ultimately the marriage did end, but she still had one more trick up her sleeve. Looks like she foraged around and found out. Erin Trudy Patterson faced the courts in early November, and she faced those charges. However, the prosecution had said they need time before they can proceed, as they have to analyze computer materials seized during a search of Erin's home at the time of her arrest. She will not make her next court appearance until May 2024. And that, my friends, is the story of the Mushroom Maiden. Yeah, good one, right? Mushroom Maiden. Erin Patterson. A woman who, allegedly, killed 3, tried to kill another 2, all because her husband just wouldn't get back with her. Her husband, who she tried to kill 4 times, maybe 5 if he had actually gone to that lunch. I mean, on one hand, it's like maybe this was all a horrible accident, and when this goes to court, she'll be found not guilty, or, just manslaughter, or something like that. Or she is, in fact, a sadistic serial killer wannabe who purposely murdered 3 close people at a lunch and then bawled crocodile tears to the media. She was described as an intelligent person, but maybe not, that much. Did she not think the source of the poisoning would be found out, and that it would be unbelievable that it would be accidental? I mean, not trying to be mean or anything, folks, but she's pretty bad at murder if she did plan this. Whatever it is, this is serious psycho behavior, and guess what? I'm not afraid to say it. Well, let's see what the trial will cook up. But it's not leaving mushroom for doubt. Oh god, puns make me gag. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate you being here. It means so much to me. Also, a huge thank you to everybody who was messaging me a couple of days ago saying that the That Chapter podcast made their top podcast of the year. That's incredible. I was actually completely blown away by the amount of you who messaged me that. So thank you so much for listening. Check out the That Chapter podcast every Monday, wherever you get your podcasts. Here, listen, that about wraps it up. A new video will be out in a couple of days, so please check it out. But until then, take care of each other, and take care of yourselves, and don't eat any mushrooms you don't understand, because that won't be good for you. I love you. Mike out.